Hello, my name is Katie Agenbrod, and I am the Credential Specialist for COPA. I am here to show you the updated version of the Certemy Certified Peer and Family Specialist application process. Before we dive into it, please keep in mind this that you're about to see is how the application will look for anyone who started their application after February 1st, 2025. If you started your application before February 1st, 2025, your application will not look like this. It'll look like it did before, all the way up until September 1st of 2025. We're giving you 6 months to get your application done in the old version, held to the old manual standards. But once that September 1st date hits, your application will be transferred over to this new one. If you finish your initial application in these next 6 months, you will also see the updated version of the recertification application once that's completed. So, before I dive into this, also, there's a step that you won't see on here because I already completed it on my end in order to be able to show you the rest of the steps, but it is the registration fee. So, the registration fee will now be the only thing that you see when you first start a new Certemy account. And start a new CPFS application. You'll see nothing else, just the registration fee. So that's a $50 fee that you pay for us to be able to give you access to the Certemy application software. You can pay it yourself, or if you are having a third-party organization pay that for you, there is an option to select that there. Please do make sure you get with your organization to fill out the third-party payment form we have on the website. Otherwise, there might be a delay in getting you the rest of those application steps to pop up because that payment does have to be complete prior to you seeing the rest of the application. The rest of the application is what you see here below. A lot of it will look familiar, but there are some changes, and we'll go through those step at a time. One of the biggest changes is going to be that pretty much every step description, so the descriptions associated with each of the steps here, has been changed. It's just to make them more clear, more detailed, take out anything that was a little bit confusing, and then also take out any direct links or anything that has the chance to break. The first step in your application is applicant information. Previously, this was called CPFS application, which was a little confusing, and people would think that this is the only step they needed to complete in order to have their application completed. But this is just where you put your basic information. So you'll fill out any of these required areas and then any that are optional that you'd also like to fill out. And those are all the same up until we get to the bottom here. So we added a confirmation box for you to double check that the name that you entered in this applicant information step is the name that matches your government issued ID that you'll be bringing to your exam. The reason for this is I use this name up here when I'm pre-registering you for that exam. So if you show up with the letter that you get after registration and it doesn't match your driver's license or whatever else you're using for your government issued ID, they will turn you away at the testing center and you'll have to pay a fee to get a new testing pre-registration. So just definitely double check that. And then we ask you to attest that you're the individual completing this application. If you did receive assistance, please use this text box just to indicate if your supervisor helped you or anybody else who helped you complete this application. And then we just ask if you're currently incarcerated, as we have a little bit different of a procedure for that. Moving on to the questionnaire, most of the big changes here are that questions were reworded to make them a little bit more clear and then reorganized to make the flow of the questionnaire a little bit easier to follow. And then we did add a couple of questions. If you have personal lived experience with, and this is a multiple select, so you can select as many of these as you need for your own personal lived experience. And then above that is also a newer question where we briefly ask you to briefly describe your current professional role. And then we also ask here at the bottom if you'll need accommodations for the ICNRC exam. This is really helpful for me because I need to indicate that when I'm doing your pre-registration for the exam, as you'll follow a different process for that exam registration. Otherwise, everything that you see here are the same questions as on the last version, and the process is the same. You just go through here, select yes or no, provide any additional details if necessary. This is a new step. And I do want to preface very heavily that you still do have to answer the question, but your answer to the question will not impact your application up until this step becomes a requirement in March 2026. So we wanted to get this in here so that people had time to know about it, to know that this was coming. Sometimes application processes for some people take a couple of years. So knowing that this is coming, if you do know your application process is going to take longer, is important. So either way you answer this question, it won't impact your application until March 2026. And this is the personal recovery attestation, which is 2 years of sustained and continuous recovery time of your own personal lived experience with substance misuse or mental health challenges, or as a family member or loved one of a person or persons with substance use and or mental health challenges. So that is that step. Formal education has remained the same as it was before. It's just proof of high school completion as shown in any of the following document options. And you'll just upload that by going into continue and dropping that file in here. Next up, we have our training domains. These have not changed much at all. There's just a couple of changes in the guidelines around those hours. So you'll see here that we no longer allow online self-paced or offline self-paced training for initial applications. And the training description has changed a little bit, but otherwise, for advocacy, ethics, mentoring and education, and recovery and wellness, everything looks exactly the same as it did before. And I do want to make a couple notes actually on this step. So when you upload training hours, if you have multiple trainings that you're putting into a domain, this will be a little bit more unusual for initials due to the requirement of these trainings being core trainings. And that's discussed in a little bit more depth on the manual video that we did. So make sure to check that out as well. But most core trainings, they fulfill these training domains fully. So you'll only be uploading one certificate of completion. But if you are taking one that it's like 8 hours of advocacy training, and then you have like 2 1-hour trainings that you're putting in here, make sure to upload each of those separately. So instead of dropping all of your certificates of completion into the same submission, the CPFS committee rejects or approves trainings on an individual basis. So you need to upload them individually. So go in here for one training, add the hours, the title, the provider, upload that one certificate of completion, and then hit submit, and then do the same for the other trainings that you have. Also, one thing that happens pretty frequently is that Certemy will turn this step green as soon as you upload anything to it. So you could upload a half an hour, 10 hours, and it would turn this little circle here green either way. So what you want to keep an eye out for is here. Right now we have those 10 hours and incomplete. You'll want to see all 10 hours go into pending verification here. That means that you've actually uploaded all 10 hours. If there's anything left in incomplete, that step is not yet done. So just keep a careful eye on that. Additional training also is no online or offline self-paced. But if you do take a training that is a conference or not on the CPFS approved training list, which you can find on our website, you can list those conference domains here so the committee can see how they connect to the credential domains. And then if you do take any training not on the CPFS approved training list, then list the training that you attended and how it connects to the credential domain. So we have that approved training list, but for the additional training domain and any other domains, if you take a large core training or a small additional training that is not on the CPFS approved training list, just list it in here and how it connects to the credential domains. Next, we have our experience hours. So the process is the same on your end. You'll just hit add a new invitation, type in the email of your supervisor. It'll drop down a box for you to put their first name and last name. And then you'll enter the experience hours that you'd like to assign to them up to the 500-hour requirement. If you are using multiple supervisors, please only enter the hours that they're attesting to. So if you know your supervisor is only attesting to 300 hours, only type 300 in there, not 500. Certemy will stop letting you send invitations after you hit the 500 mark of invitations that you've sent. So if you send one person a 500-hour invitation, you can send no more. If you send somebody a 250-hour, you can send as many others as you need to get up to that 500 total. If you do send one for 500 to somebody and they only attest to some of those hours, Certemy just has to go in and reset some stuff so that they can allow you to send more invitations, and it can just delay the process a little bit. We have supervised experience, which same deal here. You can invite multiple supervisors. Just make sure to send the exact hours that you're inviting for if you are doing that. But you'll scroll down to the bottom, add new invitation, and then enter that here. Lived experience is largely the same. We did clean up the questions a little bit to make them a little bit more specific and easier to understand, but the basic format of coming in here and typing in your response, and it doesn't have to be lengthy, 250 words or less per question, is exactly the same as it was before. Code of Ethical Conduct looks a little bit different. It's now titled Release Statement and Code of Ethical Conduct. Please do go to the website to review this in the actual document version that it's in, and then come back here to attest to the specific points. But essentially, it is the same format of going through and agreeing to the parts of the Code of Ethical Conduct and release statement. And then you'll be able to, well, it's going to make me fill in all the fields, but when you hit continue, you'll go ahead and sign via the computer. So you'll just click your mouse and drag to make your signature to sign that Code of Ethical Conduct. Next, we have the application fee. This is the same, $245. It covers our admin processing in your first exam attempt. If you do have to redo the exam for any reason, you failed the exam, you didn't make it to the testing center, something like that, the fee is $80 for a new exam attempt, but for your actual initial application, it's at $245. And all you have to do is, again, same with registration fee, hit pay fee, or if you're doing a third-party payment, you'll go through that same process of indicating that here, and then making sure your organization is filling out that third-party payment form on our website so that there's no delays. At that point, your application is considered complete. So all of these steps complete, green, everything in training has been moved over to pending verification. Same with experience, all of that. So once you get here, you're at committee review. So our CPFS committee meets once per month. Their meeting dates are on the website, and I do recommend making careful note of those dates because our manual requirements are that all of these application steps have to be completed and ready for review 10 days prior to that meeting date. So I pull a report at that point, and if your application is complete, it will show up. If it's not, it won't. So make sure your application is complete 10 days prior to that meeting date on the website. If there is a personal deadline you have, I would recommend getting your application done 2 to 3 months prior to that personal deadline. And we cannot offer any expedited application reviews because our committee is made up of volunteer members of the peer workforce, so their time is limited to that monthly meeting date. So once your application has been reviewed by them, it'll either be approved and I'll send you your pre-registration for the exam. You'll get a request for additional information on any part of the application that they're needing a little more information on or any revisions on. And then if your application is rejected, which is extremely rare, we'll get with you for next steps on that. But once your pre-registration has been sent to you, you get registered for the exam, you take the exam, and then previously we asked you to upload your results to Certemy in this step down here, the ICRC exam step, but we process those results anyways on our end, so we figured to streamline things, we'll go ahead and upload your results for you. The following Friday, after the completion of your exam, the credential team will upload your results and send you your finalized credential. So if you take it on a Friday, it'll be the next Friday after that. Okay, so this is the CPFS for certification application. This will pop up right after your initial application's been finalized. So you can start working on it anytime after that. Just know that if you finish it super early, like a year early, you're welcome to. But we will not present it to the committee until 3 months prior to your expiration date. So we'll just hold on to it until 3 months prior. We do recommend that you get this completed, though, 2 to 3 months prior to your expiration date, for the reasons that I just mentioned related to not being able to expedite initial application reviews. So it's not required to get it done that early, but it is recommended. So similar to the initial, the step descriptions have been changed, and there's a couple extra steps in this application. The applicant information section looks exactly the same as the initial. The questionnaire also looks exactly the same as the initial, just without the accommodations for the exam question. This is exactly the same as on the initial. Again, not a requirement until 2026. You do have to respond to it, but it will not impact your application review until March 2026. Okay, so for peer-specific continuing education, the actual Certemy process is exactly the same. So you'll pick your type of training here. And as you can see, self-paced is an option for recertification, just not for initial. And as I said, for initial, please make sure, and this happens way more in recertification because there's a lot of smaller hours, to upload them individually. So one training is put in here, hit submit, another training, hit submit, instead of dropping everything into one training. If you do that, I will have to reach out and ask you to fix it. For information on what kind of training is accepted, the clinical hours training cap that is new, all of that, please see the video that I did with our credential manager, Precious Collins, where we walk through the updated manual, which has all of that more granular information. Similarly, the ethics education step is the same. We do also have that additional information section here, and this one's a little different. It has 3 questions because we have that clinical hours cap, peer relevant clinical hours cap. If you do take any clinical or therapy specific trainings, you have to justify how they relate to the peer role in this credential in this third question here. Otherwise, the first 2 questions are the same as they were for the initial. So after that, we have our release statement and code of ethical conduct. It looks exactly the same as it does on the initial. Recertification fee is that $200 fee. Same exact process as the rest of the fees. Pay here or the third-party payment. And again, make sure you go to our website with your organization to make sure that they fill out that form for you. And then lastly, the continuing education statement. Nothing has changed here except for the fact that you no longer have to upload a statement. Like we used to have you upload a Word doc statement, but this now looks exactly like the lived experience statement in your initial, where you just respond to it in Certemy. And once you reach this point, committee review, you will go through that same committee review process. So again, your recertification application has to be ready 10 days prior to the monthly review date. And once approved, I'll send you your updated credential, any requests for information or revisions, or if it is rejected, next steps. So that is it. That is the updated Certemy initial and recertification applications for the Certified Peer and Family Specialist. Oh, one thing before I go, I do want to make sure to mention that when you start your application and you see that registration fee step, double, triple, quadruple check that you are in the CPFS Certified Peer and Family Specialist application. Our acronyms, you can see over here, I have the prevention ones over here too, look very similar. The CCPS is our Colorado Certified Prevention Specialist credential. It's very different from the peer credential. So you want to make sure you are in the CPFS application before paying your registration fee, because we don't offer any refunds. And then I just want to re-clarify that all this information applies to you if you started your application after February 1st, 2025, Or if you don't get your current Certemy application in the older version complete by September 1st, 2025. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at any time. That's what we're here for. Me specifically for technical assistance with Certemy. So my email is Katie, Katie, at coprovidersassociation.org, or you can go to our website, and on the contact us page, you can find our contact information, or on the about us page, you can also find it there too. So lots of ways to reach out and contact us. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.